to have an order of the Hinds County Board of Supervisors hiring Attorney Prentice Alexander as Hinds County lobbyist. I feel that it's important that if this county doesn't get anything from the legislature, and the last year we got very little, that we should have a lobbyist to help push. And I think there's no one any more qualified than Prentice Alexander. So moved, Mr. President.
It's been moved. Is there a second? I'll second it. It's been moved and properly second. Discussion?
Yeah, I do.
Mr. Fisher?
Do we have an idea of the cost on this? And I know we've talked off and on for years about the need for a lobbyist for the county. So I'd like to hear some of the thoughts of the board right now before we move forward on this.
Mr. Alexander is here. Mr. Alexander, if you come forward, please.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the board. Good morning and happy New Year. Regarding the cost, I would indicate to the board that the cost would be entirely negotiable. The most important part of the cost is the expenses. The expenses are most important because in order to get a better profile and presence before the legislature for Hinds County, it's going to be important to wine and dine, basically. And that's going to be the major part of the expense. That could be handled in various ways. The expenses could be made and then reimbursement sought, or the county could provide an expense account for those types of expenses. As far as the cost of the lobbying services themselves, that could be handled in multiple ways. I would suggest that an hourly rate be set by the county, and that a small retainer in the amount of, say, $10,000 be added to that, and that would be sufficient to get everything going that needs to be going immediately. As you know, the legislature will convene tomorrow, and their social calendar has probably been set to a large extent already. But I believe there's still room for us to make the wishes of Hinds County known. And it would be my intent to make certain that the legislative program that Hinds County has is fully presented to the legislature, and that every effort is made that that program be implemented. So in summary, as far as expense is concerned, the major item is the expense that would be incurred, as well as, and that could be handled in different ways, as I said. But the cost of the lobbying services themselves is highly negotiable, and I would be happy to sit down with the board attorney or the county administrator to work that out. But the parameters that I've indicated, $10,000 for retainer and an hourly rate.
Mrs. Calhoun?
Mr. Attorney Alexander.
It's Alexander, not attorney.
I appreciate you offering your services of being a lobbyist for the Hinds County Board of Supervisors. I will say that in the past, the Board of Supervisors has had a bad experience in hiring lobbyists, meaning they never brought anything back to the board regarding any resolution that was requested of the legislature. We just had a bad experience. I cannot recall any piece of legislation that this board has proposed that our lawyers, that our lobbyists were successful. So if we negotiate, if the majority of the members of the board agree to hire you as a lobbyist, I would suggest that we negotiate your prices based upon the results that you accomplish.
And I fully understand and agree with that. And we could set it up as a contingency if that would be more comfortable for the board. And as I say, I could negotiate with the board attorney or the county administrator in that regard.
Okay. What I would suggest is that once we make this particular vote, if it passes, that the board you get with the county administrator and the board attorney to present a contract for this. Mr. Fisher?
I would have preferred that we had maybe during the budget discussion talked about this, because there's a certain amount of comfort level that I'd like to have moving into an open-ended expense account, which, of course, we know that there's some restaurants where this discussions take place that can be very, very expensive, and some where they're not so expensive. We also, as a board, I don't believe we've ever talked about an agenda, what we'd like to see. I know that we're moving very late in this process with the legislature opening tomorrow, and I don't know if we might be too late to do this. I'd like to hear some thoughts on that, from some people that are a little bit more experienced than I am in this.
Well, we'll go to Ms. Calhoun. Before we go directly to Mrs. Calhoun, I've had approximately 7 to 8 different issues that I've come up with that I thought would be worthy of presenting to the legislature, and I gave mine to Mrs. Calhoun in the past. And she has been working diligently with trying to get them in front of the legislators in the past. Mrs. Calhoun?
Yes, we have presented several legislative items that were approved by resolutions of this board, and those items have been forwarded to our senior representatives, House of Representatives, and senior senators. So many of our requests are already there. I believe Supervisor Brown is going to present another item, and I'm going to present another item. As a matter of fact, I sent a memo to each supervisor requesting any legislative items that you would like for this board to present, to please notify me, and I will take on the responsibility of writing those resolutions and presenting those resolutions back to the board for approval.
Okay. Any other comments?
Thank you. Mr. President,
Mr. Stokes?
I think I received Supervisor Calhoun's letter, memo. I just didn't feel that we had the wherewithal at the time to really get anything approved through the legislature. I'm not saying that by Mr. Alexander going to be the panacea of the situation, but I'm saying it's a step in the right direction. We got to have someone carrying out water, besides putting all the responsibility on the senators and the representatives. And I think they would respect that Hinds County saying that now when we request something, we want you to put a serious consideration on trying to pass on anything, because, again, this is the county for the state capital. And people come to the state capital for business, and the county need to have some things done to make sure that we all grow. So I think that I'll make sure that I get something to you, Supervisor. I know it's kind of late now. We need to just support the things that we already have, but I think we got the right warrant to try to get some of these things done. Right?
Now, Supervisor, now that we have a hired lobbyist, that lobbyist can go ahead and prepare a written version of the resolution and present it back to this board.
Okay.
And we also have a full attorney.
Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor of?
Yes.
Opposed to?
No.
Motion passes. Mr. Alexander, if you would get with the county administrator and board attorney and get back with us once they've completed negotiations.
I certainly will. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members of the board.
Okay. All right, Mr. Stokes, continue.
Let me just say this to you, attorney. We have some big shoes to fill, because we have been successful in receiving some legislation pertaining to Hinds County. As a matter of fact, some of the legislation that we were successful on within the state.
Well, thank you very much, Supervisor. And I realize I have big shoes to fill, but I welcome the challenge. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Stokes, continue.
Mr. President, I have on the agenda discussion of Hinds County Jail Part C. And I don't see